Well. Um, it's barely been a week, and already chaos could very well be coming to, well, some of these reform councils. We are constantly seeing, if you type in reform council on Google, you can now see a litany of results of days after election, reform councillor resigned, week after reform councillor resigned, 3 days after reform councillor resigns. It's almost like these people really didn't want to become councillors in the first place. Why would you run and then the second you got elected, you do a complete runner? Now, Durham County Council is probably, I think, going to be the most interesting one for reasons you will very quickly come to see very, very soon. Put it this way, A. Thompson is going to have an absolute dream and delight covering what goes on in there on the Durham Council because oh boy, is it going to be fun, fun. And if whoever, well, if you know, of course, the connection, then you know who might be potentially, or at least rumored to be making moves to be leader of Durham County Council. Anyway, anyway. So, yeah, chaos on these county councils already set to be unleashed. And it is of no doubt that the serious work for many of these councils is meant to be starting like this week. Many of the big first council meetings that these people are meant to start chairing are meant to happen this week, or supposedly meant to happen. But in the case of Durham, there's now rumours flying around that the county council also had to address that there are a number of councillors who, well, might have to resign their positions because they were already employed by the council. There's already one that we know of. There are apparently more, and they've got until the end of the week to make that decision. And quite frankly, when you think about it, do you give up a good paycheck to become a county councillor? I don't think many people will really want to make that decision. I think many people will just keep the paycheck because for all this talk about, oh yeah, they get expenses, it's not a paycheck. It's expenses. That is nothing. It is not a paycheck. So let's go on into this chaos that is now potentially unfolding on Durham County Council because, oh boy, is this going to be fun. But before we do that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one of today's link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So let's crack on then into this. So this comes from the BBC reporting on the mayor of Durham saying, hey, you need to stop all this tomfoolery that's going on. You need to actually step up and lead. Time to stop all, the crafty sound bites and actually do stuff. Now, will they deliver? Absolutely not. We've talked about that plenty of times, and we're going to have plenty of examples in the coming weeks why they are so awful, why they are so atrocious. But we'll get on to this soon. So, the now Northeast Mayor has called on Reform to actually step up as they take control of their first council in the region. Kim McGuinness said that she would welcome the party to the combined authority team, but it is, of course, time to move on from what we're used to from Reform, which is now pledges and soundbites. They've got a council to deliver, which is true. They are now in control. They have responsibility. They've never had this responsibility before, and they've got to deliver. And they are not going to deliver at all. Meanwhile, of course, a Green councillor, David Francis, has now raised concerns about the Reform leader, Nigel Farage, was already interfering far too much in the council in remarks made after the election. And this isn't surprising. We've talked about this before, that Farage seems to think that he can control all these councils from, his office down in London. You ain't going to be able to do that. Like, that is insane. You think that you can just give all these different councils their marching orders. Local politics is not that kind of beast. It's thousands of different sharks swimming around. And trust me, local election problems and local councils and local issues have sunk many an MP in the past. Will this be Farage's, of course, undoing? I suspect so. And once things start to go wrong in some of these councils, oh boy. Oh boy. So, when, of course, elected, Reform councillor Darren Grimes said that he hoped his party would, quote, deliver at least on the People's Council's priorities, if not on their national priorities. National priorities? That's not the position you signed up for. You've got to deliver to those local council priorities, Darren. You've got to figure out how to get the bins collected. Good luck. Good luck on that. And this is also where we come into the other news and scuttlebutts that are going around, that Darren Grimes is now making moves to be elected as the leader of Durham Council. That he wants to be in that leadership position. Oh boy, please be stupid enough to vote him in. Be stupid enough to vote him in. Because there is a guy who, opens his mouth before his brain engages. And if you've seen any of the videos, the amount of, A. Thompson covers Darren Grimes, he's just a content goldmine. Aid is going to be rubbing his hands with glee at the fact if Darren it does get confirmed, and we will probably know by the end, I think, of this week whether it'll be the case or not. But God, I hope so. God, I hope so. It will be hilarious. So the party of did course make significant gains at the local election held on May the 2nd. The party taking control of Durham Council. Speaking on BBC Politics North, Grimes accused Labour of, quote, moving on from working people. He said, people have moved on from Labour. The word that kept coming up on the doorstep was betrayal, he said. He added that when he was campaigning, people told him their ancestors had voted Labour. What? Yeah, a total real conversation with someone on the doorstep. Yeah, my ancestors voted Labour. That is just the complete wrong language to use. Yeah, my ancestors back in the 1620s when it was the Danelaw, they voted for what on earth? But there you go. Anyway, people told me that their ancestors had voted for Labour, but they were not willing to continue that tradition because the Labour Party itself had moved away from being the party of workers to being the party of the metropolitan liberals. Typical, of course. People keep on telling me, Labour's gone right. I do agree with some of the stuff that they've been saying. Yeah, is really worrying. I don't like a lot of the stuff they've been saying, especially around immigration. Very recently, don't like a lot of that. Probably going to be talking about that on the Pony Club today. But yeah, don't like that at all, quite frankly. I've said this before, you can't play Farage's game. The second you start playing his game, he wins. Attack him on so many different areas where he is so much more vulnerable, where you could really just start to chip away at him. But we'll see what happens in that. But anyway, back to this. So Grimes was, of course, considered a frontrunner to become council leader. When asked, of course, if she would work with him in cabinet, McGuinness said, "I work with anybody who wants to make this region better." And of course, you've got it. You're the regional mayor. You've sort of got to at that point. They've been, of course, Democrat elected in Durham, but they now need to actually step up and run Durham County Council and run it well. Now is the time to move on from what we're used to now from Reform, which is pledges and soundbites. They've got a council to deliver. We welcome someone into our cabinet when Durham elect a leader or even select a leader, which bear in mind they haven't done yet, because apparently they are fighting like cats and dogs, supposedly behind the scenes, about who gets this, coveted leadership position. Speaking, of course, of leadership of Durham County Council, South Teesside councillor Francis said that the difficulty is that we saw within, of course, 24 hours of the election, the results, Nigel Farage announcing what was going to happen in County Durham. Not anybody that, of course, was from County Durham or elected to represent them. Again, very true. This is the big issue that Farage is going to run into. He is going to be centrally controlling all these councils. He's going to dictate to all these councils what happens. That is not going to work. That is not going to work, full stop. The idea that, you can control 10 different councils from your office in London is insane. Because that's not how local politics works. It is not that type of animal. It is not Westminster. Yes, Westminster may be the big beast in the jungle, but here's the thing. There are others that lurk amongst the leaves, and those are the local councils. And sometimes they can affect what goes on in Westminster, but not to the level that people like Darren Grimes thinks. So yeah, things are going to get interesting on these councils. Things are going to get interesting, and I am not going to stop covering this because it gives me, as I've said before, a fantastic opportunity to really educate people about local politics and what goes on in local politics. So even though the Reform run these councils, I'm looking forward to it as an opportunity to spread the word to people just about how important local politics really is and why you should care. And, more importantly, why you should go out next time, or if you've got an upcoming by-election, probably because, one of these guys quit, why you should go out and vote. It's kind of important. Local politics matters a lot more than people think. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.